What's up? That is to be said in Milhouse's voice. I don't know if you guys are familiar with when Milhouse from The Simpsons starts going, "What's up?" And yes, I am calling him Thrill House or Thrill Ho. All my Simpsons people out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone else would be just like, exactly like my wife Elodie, enough is enough with the Simpsons episode. And I'm like, you know what? Those were the best days of my life. Oh yeah. That is a Bryan Adams Summer of '69 reference for all those people who have been living under a rock for the last 50 years. The rock god Bryan Adams. I am in fact today talking about the trade gods, and sometimes they shine upon us and sometimes they smite us. And you might have been smitten before. I want to encourage you to shake it off. Just give yourself a little tingle. Give yourself a little bum rub. Give yourself a little just shake the head. Shake it like you mean it. Just let it go. Let it go, just like Frozen, let it go. You might have been smited, smitten, smit, maybe. I don't know. You might have been attacked by the trade gods. Let it go. They love you, and maybe you need to sacrifice a nice blue pair of pliers because no one likes the blues. Everyone likes the yellows. The yellow crescents are the only way to go, but I haven't been on the tools for 10 years, so can I really say that? Although I did rough in my own house because it was enjoyable. I like being on the tools. It's nice to work with your hands and create something. All right, we are talking today about the times you feel the trade gods have shined upon you, and I reckon I'd probably get, like all of you, you get a lot of emails saying like, "Hey, I'm John. I'm an SEO god, and you're ranking 3rd on Google, and you could rank first page." And you're like, "Shut up, John. This does not make me want to hand my credit card details over to John. I don't even know who John is. He's hit me with this generic email with some obscure email address and the signature's just written. There's not even any sexy logo, and I don't even know how to contact him, but he wants my card details." And not every time that you get an email with someone cold dropping into your box, that sounds real weird, but someone just cold dropping into your box going like, we want to work with you and do your SEO. And it's like, well, not every one of those is a sign from the trade gods that you need to take your wallet out and give your card details over and pay for John's holiday to Fiji, right? Now, on this as well, so many people get emails and this happened to us a lot. And you get an email for a project, right? And what do you want when you're in the electrical world, aircon world, solar world? Your ideal client, a part of that, or a fraction of that, I believe, is someone who can give you repeat work. Someone who can not just give you 1 or 2 jobs, but can give you 10 or 20. Someone that can not give you 10 or 20, but give you 100. And obviously, there's many factors that sort of identify the ideal client, like someone who's got a great temperament, someone that pays their bills on time, someone that's easy to work with, someone that respects you, someone that respects your time, someone that wants it done properly and excellently, someone that's happy to pay your rate, so not bottom dollar, and someone that can give you, like I said before, more than one job. So sometimes these emails pop in your inbox and they're like, "Hey, we'd love you to tender on this project." And it's like, oh my goodness, the trade gods have shone upon me, and it's just because I sacrificed that blue pair of pliers last week. I knew it, the tides were turning, and the trade gods doing this, and I just want to, when I first got a couple of those emails, I was like, oh, sick. We'll quote this for sure. And I had a couple of big rules for me, and this is what I learned over the years was not everything that comes into your inbox is a sign from the trade gods. And you got to think that the people that send these emails, and this is when I was back in Crowie electrical days, I don't even know if we had a Google review. I don't even know if we would have been on GMB, but we would have been like organically ranked on Google. We would have been like scraping the bottom of the barrel. I was actually really, really good at just finding work and drumming up conversations and meeting new people, and we had a lot of work, and we were able to retain a lot of clients and a lot of staff members. But one thing we did really poorly was probably social media. And looking back, that's just a really low-hanging fruit you can be excellent at. And if you're considering getting Google reviews or chasing a bit more of the social stuff, I would encourage you. Like, I often look back on my business and and like, what would have been if I dabbled in a bit of advertising, or dabbled in a bit of SEO, or dabbled in a bit of like chasing some Google reviews, and actually posted something on social media. And because it's like, this is crazy, but one of our members in, I think it might be Cairns or somewhere up there, pretty much someone moved there. They saw the person that moved there saw this person's business on social media and said, I want to work for them. They look like a cool company, and went to work there. So the underrated thing about social media is its reach is beyond comprehension. So you don't know what posting that if posting something weekly gets you a staff member within 18 months, hey, that was worth every single dollar. And you don't know who's watching you, not watching at close quarters, hopefully not, but you don't know who's watching you from a distance. You don't know who's watching your stuff, who's looking at your stuff, who's sussing out whether they want to come over or not. So be present on social media. Also, Google reviews. One of our main members, and don't want to give him, maybe I will give him a shout out, maybe not, whatever, I won't. But you might know who I'm talking about. He sat in this meeting for schools, like to get the schools contract. And if you sort of know how the schools contracts works, they give away. A lot of them, they give away like kilometer ranges. So you might have 20 schools within the 100 Ks, and you travel here at that certain point. And anyway, so he sat in this meeting with a bunch of big dogs, the big schools, the big suits, you might call them. And they were like, we've seen your 250 reviews, we're happy. That's the first thing they said. The first thing how they social proofed him coming to work at their schools was basically Google reviews. So it's immeasurable the reach it can have. And just look at your own habits. You know, if you went to Brisbane or Perth or Cronulla, or if you went to Byron Bay and you didn't know where to eat, and somewhere had 400 reviews and somewhere had 4, you would eat at the 400 reviews place. Unless they all the 400 reviews said, I got food poisoning from this place chicken sucks, this was the worst. Like chances are 400 reviews wouldn't say that. I don't think I've ever seen that before, but just encourage you just to dabble in that. Also encourage you, this is crazy, this just came to mind just then. One of our other clients sort of is involved in school and in the schoolwork over the holidays, and they've got probably like half the contract of this pretty major contract. Anyway, they got a phone call the other day, and it looks like they might be picking up the whole contract because the other contractor, the other company, left some Dirty Bird rubbish, some KFC rubbish with maybe some half-eaten chicken, maybe some chips, I don't know. But KFC rubbish was in the schoolroom, and the whoever, the builder, the principal, who cares who it was, walked in there and be like, what the hell is this? I just want to stop you right where you're at and just recognize this other company could have done the best job. They could have done the best work. Their systems could have been installed perfectly. They could have cleaned up after themselves, like cleaned the grills. They could have basically dotted all the I's, crossed the T's. They could have been there on time. They could have worked overtime. Hey, they could have even worked Sunday to get the job done. But how they came unstuck wasn't the work. It wasn't the on-site work. It was that the place wasn't cleaned up properly. Is that the KFC wrapper? Who eats KFC? Does that still exist? I actually don't even know where my nearest KFC is. If you still eat KFC, hey, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear your order. And if you're just rattling off your order, I'm assuming it's chicken and chips. I'd be pretty shocked if it wasn't chicken. But I wonder if it's a burger, because the chicken there's pretty hectic. And if you can finish a 20-pack and put the bucket on your head, hey, you'd be like a mega lord. And if that's you, just get that bucket out of your backseat of your high ace and put it on your head, cut some eye holes out, and just be like, I'm the bucket man, baby. The bucket man. Anyway, where were we? Oh, yeah. So you can do the best job on site. And you know what? Where you came unstuck? Eating KFC. Not just eating KFC. Yes, the body is a temple. Don't put that stuff inside you, but also don't leave your rubbish on site. I'll never forget, as a second or third year apprentice, we were at this pretty large commercial place for my old boss, and somehow, you know how your old boss is like always your boss? Like he's just my boss forever. It doesn't matter how old I get, he'll still be my boss. And I remember him sharing the story, and we did a really, I just remember the company I used to work for, RJ Air, back in the Sutherland Shire, was awesome. Like we literally, yeah, like it was done, every job was done properly, and the reputation was everything. And I remember the work, we probably did about a 200 grand job, and everything was perfect. All the pipes were like laid out perfect on the roof, all the ductwork was amazing. Everything was straight, neat, tidy, drained, armor flex for insulation, all that kind of stuff. And I remember that Dave sharing the story, going like, guys, I got on the roof and run the client through the job, and we looked at we were like looking at the condensers on the roof, and it was like sort of a platform you'd walk around with, and he said the client got down and bent down on his knees and picked up like cable clippings, like a bit of off-cut cable out of the gutter, and put it in his pocket, and just looked at me, and he goes, it was just so embarrassing. Like, we did the best job and we came unstuck by like the last 20-30 seconds. So I want to encourage everyone out there. We just finished it's kind of called a series, but it's not a series. We finished a session today, or Cam finished a session today on end of job checklist. So making sure you've got that end of job checklist where it's like, have I dotted the I's and crossed the T's? And yes, everything has to be to code. Yes, everything has to be to standard. Yes, everything has to be to high quality. But what do people notice as well? Is the job cleaned up? Did they pat my cat? Is the invoice correct? Like, a lot of the 1%ers also make sense and add up. So wherever you are, just please nail the 1%ers, and you'll nail business. Nail the simple things, and you'll more or less nail business. But what I was talking about was when the trade gods sort of, you think they shine upon you, and you get that email about like, hey, we've got you to tender this project. And I just want to tell you sort of how the system works, because to find Crow Electrical, and this is my first question, whenever those people targeted me with an email, my first question was always like, how did you hear about me? And if it was through my friend Joel or through something, like if it was a personal relationship, I was always like, oh, cool, I'll talk to you. Because, and I was, get this as well, like some of these large tenders worth, I don't know, let's just call it 2, 3, 4, 500 grand. Let's call it 20 grand. I was always a big believer that you want a personal in. So if someone's going to owe me 20 or 30 grand, I'd like to sort of know who owes me 20 or 30 grand. So if you're going to respond to a cold call, or you're going to respond to a cold email, or you're going to quote something and accept a job for someone you don't know, you just want to be a little bit careful, because if push comes to shove and you don't have that personal relationship to try and claw your money back, it might be more trouble than it's worth. I remember we were doing work for, I think I've shared this story before, but I'll share it again because it's quite relevant, for a local builder, and my friend worked there, and then my friend had a sort of falling out with the boss for a couple of reasons, probably a little from column A, a little from column B, probably a little bit of both of their issues, to be honest. And I was freaking out because I was like, fuck, these guys owe me 250 grand, and I don't have my friend anymore. So I was like, I don't have any leverage. Like, and it's actually quite scary. And until you've been in that position before, you might not know how scary that position is. And but like all the other clients, you know, we had relationships and track records, and I don't know. It's like there was that mutual respect and that trust. But if you don't know anyone in that company, you're just another number, it can be quite scary. And especially those large jobs, you can be owed a lot of money. So anyway, so just be careful who you work for, because my question is, if things go south, do you have a personal relationship with someone to sort of leverage off? Because that's really important. But also these contracts admins that send out these quotes, like another big question I used to ask is, how many people are quoting the job? That's a great question to ask, because chances are it's not 3, chances are it's 5 to 10, and chances are if it is 3, it might be 3 Sparkies but for 5 builders. So that's 15 Sparkies across the tender, right? And all those people talk to each other, and you can reference a couple of websites. I don't want to name them because I'm not naming and shaming. I'm just saying what to be careful of in this situation. Like the contracts administrator role for the builder or developer, their role is essentially to find a good price. And sometimes they will find a good price at all costs. I'm not saying this is all of them. I'm sure a lot of them operate with integrity, but I'm saying, why are they contacting you? Why did they reach out to you? Why is someone cold dropping into you? And if they don't have that, like, oh, you work for my friend Daniel and he said you were awesome, and then come back, oh yeah, you know, you worked for my friend Claire and she said you've got to use these people. If there's none of that, my first thing is, okay, so you've searched electrician in my local area. You've contacted X amount of people. You're looking for 10 quotes. Of those 10 quotes, you're no doubt going to pick the cheapest one. Of the cheapest one, you're then going to submit your tender based on that cheapest price. Of the cheapest price, if you win the tender, you're going to come back and then bargain. So you didn't, even if you get the first round tender, you might not get the second round. In other words, they might put your price forward and your scope forward or whatever. And chances are, this is where the scopes are so heavily documented on Dropbox or whatever. And this is why you want to always download the plans, because these people get so sneaky and they essentially like swap the plans, or you're on revision D now, but if you didn't say revision C, you might have lost it. And if you don't, I remember sitting with this guy and he told me he was getting 5 quotes. And I was like, I read the contract, and this is a builder I sort of really wanted to get in with. And I read the contract and I was like, oh, it says here that you've got, I think it was 48 hours to submit a variation. Otherwise you missed out on it. And I was like, oh, cool. So when the architect sends the revisions, they'll just like, you know, they put the red squiggle around it, they highlight the revision. He's like, oh no, you'll have to go through it. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, that could take me a day to go through it and then pick like a obscure PowerPoint on an obscure wall that I might have missed, and there's $200. Like, this is the definition of psycho. Like, I don't really want to dabble in this. And I remember saying no to him, and he was pretty spewing and offended. And I was like, well, I'm not going to price against 5 people. Like, it's not what we're about. It's not part of our company ethos, and it's not who I really want to work with. Like, there's no loyalty here. It seems like you guys are just after the cheapest price. So the contracts administrator's job is to basically lessen the tender price so the builder can make more money, or so that their price can be more acceptable to the client. So it's like, just be really, really careful. And if you know how the system works, like, their whole job is to go through the sub trades, like the plumbers and the Sparkies and the tilers and the kitchen manufacturers, and, you know, insert trade here, gyprockers, and be like, okay, where can we sort of save some money and how can we claw this thing back? And my experience of that sort of like mid-tier tendering has been, you're not always working with the best people. And if you've got a relationship in that, if you've got a relationship in that like sort of area now, that's awesome. You might have a friend who's part of the contracts admin teams, or a friend who's a project manager. If you've got an in, I'm not talking about you right now. I'm talking about where the cold emails come and hit your inbox, and you're like, aside from the trade gods, let me quote it. Not everything that hits your inbox is good. Not everything that hits your inbox is being aligned and assigned to you by the trade gods. So just be careful in that world. Like, work out, do you want to quote that job? Is your business in a position to quote that job? If you win that job, can you handle that job? And it's like, so many times you see those people doing those sort of like high, you know, $500 to $1 million tenders, and the percentage might be sort of so low. And make no mistake, if your business is sort of successful in that realm, you'd probably be looking at a pretty big team where your cost of ops is sort of spread among a lot of people, and your administration is quite, I want to say, low to an extent that it might take the business owner or the operations manager or the project manager, it might take them 3 weeks to quote it, but once the quote's done, that's set and forget 15 to 20 people for a year. So just be quite careful in that, I would suggest. And you know, I remember contracts, this is so important, but like dealing with contracts as well. I remember quoting for this builder who I'd love to name, but I just can't. But yeah, like he basically, we quoted something at 45, and then someone else was 40. And this is a pretty normal conversation. You know, they called and they said, oh, you know, someone's at 40 and you're at 45. Do you reckon you can, essentially they're asking you to drop your pants. Like, do you reckon you can drop your pants and we'll just check. Like, and I was, oh man, like, and we actually needed the work. And I just want to encourage everyone here listening to this, every time, like, don't be busy for the sake of being busy. I remember sort of dropping our pants, dropping our price, and going, oh, okay, sweet, because I was a little bit insecure. And it's like, when you take an opportunity that keeps you busy for the sake of being busy, you might miss other opportunities. So there's an opportunity cost to your subcontracting. There's an opportunity cost to the jobs you accept. And it might be that you dropped your price on one, but it might mean you miss something else. And if you're going to be busy for the sake of busy, I would highly encourage you to go to the beach instead, and just enjoy your life. Because it's like, don't just quote something just to get by, to get through, unless you are so freaking calculated and you've got a plan. But like, if you've got over 10 to 15 staff, you might think differently, and that's okay. I get you, because I could probably do the same thing as you. But if you're at 0 to 10 staff, be very, very careful in that situation. But I remember this guy, like, we won a job and it was for 40 grand, and I remember thinking, and anyway, long story short, guess what? we lost money on it. Or we didn't make money, I probably should say, is a better way to put it. But I remember him calling me one day, and he's like, "Oh, Crowie, yeah, just saying, you got to get the digger here tomorrow to," and I was like, "What do you mean?" I would never, and I'm talking Sydney, so if you're rural, yeah, bear with me for a sec, but I was like, "Man, we've never," like, the plumber, we do the undergrounds the same day as the plumber, like, just get them to dig for us, or like, you guys would only have someone there, so just dig it and we'll chuck the conduits in. They're like, "Oh, nah, it says in your contract earthworks," and I was like, "Where does it say that?" And looked, and sure enough, they'd added in earthworks, and I was like, I think I don't swear much, and I swore, and not one of my finest hours, but I remember being pretty upset about the whole thing, and I was like, that's dodgy. Like, you can't just chuck stuff in there, but that's what these people do. And I remember a bit later, my head guy was roughing in, and he's like, "Oh, Crow, they just told me about the floor heating." And I called, I just love to name this guy. And if you're listening and you know me, it's not who you would expect. Just want to highlight that. That's heaps funny if you know me and you're from the area I am. But I remember, and then they're like, they've got, like, I've been told to put the floor heating in, and I was like, so I called, and he's like, "Oh, yeah. And this guy, like, it would have been like a 25-year-old, just total knob, like, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, didn't you see that? Like, you signed the contract." And I was like, I signed the contract in good faith. I didn't read every single line, and maybe I should have, right? But I've never seen someone act like this before, and this is ridiculous. And I sort of told him exactly what I thought. And which I would do this, probably the same thing again, because I was pretty spewing. And I remember basically we looked at it, and it said power for floor heating, and I was like, "Oh, cool, we'll just run power then." And he's like, "Oh, no, you got to do it." And I said, "Well, it says power for, so if you're going to change anything, like, maybe you should do it properly." And he was spewing, and we got this variation through, but I was like, I will never, ever work for that company again. And that person's reputation is just cooked for me forever. So anyway, long story short, if you're gonna quote stuff for people you don't know, or even you do know, be careful. Download the plans, save the plans. Make sure you're on top of the variations. Make sure, look, so many people are too busy to look over variations, and it's just crazy. Like, every single week there needs to be a weekly non-negotiable of checking the variations out. What was additional? How can I charge it? And every Monday that it just has to go out, because hey, if it's additional to the scope, it's additional to the scope. That's really important. But be really careful for everything that pops in your inbox. It's not necessarily a sign from the trade gods, although it could be. But ask yourself, or ask them the question, how did you hear about us? What makes you want to work with us? Why do you think we'd be a good fit together? How are your progress payments handled? Like, what happens if I can't get the money? Just make sure you are honest, and really go there, really ask the hard questions. And if you're not comfortable pricing anything, please just say no. Just say, yeah, sweet, like, thanks, but no thanks, and keep us in mind for the next one. Or if a job's a little bit outside your scope, you don't have to say yes. You could, but you don't have to. So hopefully you learned something today about how the contracts admin work. I'm not saying they're all criminals, but I'm saying they're all criminals. I'm not saying they're all dodgy. I'm just telling you to watch out and to watch your back, like the Sharky song. Right, watch your back. Anyway, happy quoting, and reach out if you need us. We are Sparky Coach. See you soon.